Warning. The following restricted access file is Volume 2, Entry Number 7 of Dr. Vega's personal log, who has been under secret surveillance due to suspicion of disloyalty to the Empire and breach of confidentiality by part of our comedian Margulis. Any attempt to circulate further classified information will be met with swift execution by method of glassing. Usage is for documentation purposes only and access is being monitored. Proceed with caution, as any and all attempts to circumvent this warning will not be tolerated as per order of the Council of Seven. Now playing archived Vitruvian file.
Of all the asinine things! Working with these children is by far the most maddening activity I can think of. I swear these children are bastards in a toy-sized package. How the hell is Margulis able to keep sane? Doesn't help that they have borderline supernatural powers and a war machine on their fingertips, now does it? And what's even more? Research, remingling, military coup. Ballas is ordering the engineering department to crank out new things like candy. Everyone involved in the investigation of the Zalman 10-0 is mysteriously missing, and none of the Archimedeans are willing to say anything. How am I supposed to conduct my research if I am constantly denied of information? It's absolutely... Pardon me, I lost my composure for a moment. Never mind that. Now, allow me to pick your brain. When you think of a Warframe, what do you picture? Do you envision a suit of armor surrounding some freak thing with supernatural powers? Maybe you imagine a silent biomechanical monster. Perhaps you see a heavily traumatized child committing involuntary genocide. Whatever you think, you're simultaneously correct and incorrect, because a Warframe, quintessentially speaking, is not quite man, machine, or animal, despite possessing traits of all three. But there's one thing that everyone misunderstands about a Warframe. That being that they are simple shells for operators to control. That's a very big misnomer, because a Warframe is more than meets the eye. That might come as surprising to you, and to be honest, I would not blame you at all. Executor Ballas has never been the best at talking outside of his inner circle, all of whom remain religiously tight-lipped, except for one, Margulis. If there's any flaw to Archimedean Margulis, it would be her overly maternal instincts to the impurities that we call tenno. I must admit, however, her work on developing transference somatic therapy is simply brilliant. However, that does not excuse her weakness. She would never respond to any of my questions about Ballas, about the Warframe project's origin, not even regarding her work. That selfish little hag has knowingly blocked my pursuit of knowledge with my every attempt, each and every time. I hate her. Enough that I have no quarrel with breaking the transference chambers to borrow one of her so-called children. It's funny, not even Margulis is capable of loving them all equally. She refused Operator Rel access to her transference after she's learned he's been undergoing cognitive behavioral therapy because of his mental condition. So, I took the gamble against Margulis. She would tell me what I wanted to know, or she'd lose one of her little subjects. To my surprise, she came to me and answered all I had in mind for her, as if the previous months of my curiosity had never occurred. I gave her back her impure animal and returned to my chambers in silence. So, what is a Warframe then? Nothing more than scraps of metal and wiring conducted by a splinter of infested sub-hive mind and held together by an operator's void-tainted touch. Since the vast majority of Warframes are viewed as vessels for battle, nobody really stops to consider what a Warframe truly is. And that's an abomination. As is known, Margulis developed transference somatic therapy for operators to develop their own potential via remote control of a Warframe. From my understanding of transference, becoming tainted by the void has allowed operators to sort of possess entities via spatial projection, also known as spatial passing. However, in theory, it is possible for the opposite effect to occur, simply due to the nature of how transference works. Every warframe contains some amount of tissue sampled from the cultivated sub-hive mind that we call helminths. To clarify, helminth is not the original strain of the infested plague, nor is it connected to the neural network of the original strain, yet it is still capable of independent thought and action, although it is surprisingly obedient due to every operator possessing immunity to the infested. Here's a crude example if it makes it easier to paint a picture. Suppose that a pack of cobras represents the infested as a whole. The alpha male or pack leader would be the original strain of the infested. All other cobras in that pack represent every organism under the jurisdiction of the original strain. They might have their own physical body, but ultimately the actions of the alpha male, or consciousness of the original infested strain in this case, is what determines what the pack does. Remove any other cobra from that pack and domesticate it. This symbolizes the helminth. Removal from its pack represents the loss of its connection to the original strain and its influence. And by introducing a bigger predator, such as an operator with immunity to the infested, domestication becomes significantly easier. That does not mean that the helminth is a safe entity. One only needs to look at what happened with the Umbra project for proof of that. Now then, this pertains to the transference, because since the helminth's sub-hive mind resides in every warframe, it has to be willing to be possessed by an operator in order for a warframe to be actually operational. It's a strange symbiotic relationship. The helminth relies on the operator to protect it from harm, and the operator relies on the helminth for the more biological functions of a warframe, such as reconstruction of internal tissue and biochemical chassis after battle. In theory, the helminth may override the operator's influence and thereby assume partial or complete control over a warframe, regardless of an operator being willing or not. This process is called reverse transference, and knowledge of it outside the Council of Seven appears to be non-existent, at least if what Margulis said was true. I'm not surprised how she knows about it, given how she essentially has ballast wrapped around her fingers. But what about the other Archimedeans? Parental, Lathar, Paravane. What would they say? Would sharing this knowledge not be beneficial for us all? According to Margulis, there are two types of reverse transference that can manifest: induced reverse transference and detached reverse transference. Induced reverse transference can occur when an operator experiences some form of extreme trauma, either mental or emotional. An operator under emotional stress who is then witness to a significant traumatic event, such as a sibling or loved one being killed, is highly likely to undergo induced reverse transference. Psychological trauma, such as this, is enough for the operator to temporarily lose control of their warframe, allowing the inner helminth splinter to assume full control, as the operator's distress would be enough for them to lose focus over maintaining control of the warframe. This would effectively force the warframe to begin exhibiting more aggressive and primal behavior, as if reverting to a more bestial state. It is assumed that the helminth does this to preserve its own being at the cost of the operator's psyche, as being in full control of the warframe would almost guarantee a helminth splinter's longevity. For example, one of our Rhino Prime frames experienced induced reverse transference during an internal examination, breaking free of its shackles. This resulted in the warframe in question exhibiting hysterical behaviors and allowing the helminth to take control and break out of the testing chambers, killing 6 researchers and 43 security personnel before finally subdued by an operator-piloted Atlas frame on standby. On the opposite side, detached reverse transference can occur when the operator is threatened by some type of entity that could neutralize both the operator and helminth splinter permanently, and the operator has no method of resisting, whether it is because of paralysis, immobilization, or other condition. This stimulus causes the helminth to immediately assume control of the warframe in an effort to either preserve both the operator and itself, or to simply remove both beings from that dangerous situation. It is assumed that this is done not out of some protective instinct, but because the helminth recognizes that its existence, which relies on the operator, could be extinguished if the operator is allowed to perish. This causes the helmet to take immediate action in an effort to ensure its survival. However, it appears that the helmet only acts in this manner when its survival is truly possible. For example, during combat operations on Tau front lines, an operator-piloted Mirage was ambushed by a battalion of sentients and isolated from Allied assistance. The operator in question held off enemy forces until eventually they were subdued in combat by being vaporized, eliminating all physical and void essence of the operator. The helmet splinter was silent throughout the entire encounter, only saying one word before being vaporized. Together. Oh, that's adorable. But also idiotic. Now then, do I really treat the tenor with contempt? Hardly. I only do my job. I say the same thing to any of those little shits that dare speak up. You're not a savior, you're a demon. You're not a warrior, you're an animal with purpose. How are you any different from them? At the end of the day, a beast on a leash is still a beast. Now, darling, do what you're told, or you'll end up like that nobody back soldier they grabbed for the Umber project. Poor bastard.